Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and as usual, I thank you for joining me for another episode. This week, my guest is Elle McCann of Curious Themes. Elle is a Shopify expert, and she has been for over 7 years. Now, if you remember back in May of this year, a few months ago, I recorded an episode comparing Shopify to Etsy, and we had a discussion about when would be the right time to move over, if at all, and how to do that and how to combine both. Well, Elle is here to help clarify that question for us. If you still are on the fence and you're not really sure what to do, hopefully my conversation with Elle will help to clarify that for you. And she has, like I said, over 7 years been a Shopify expert. She's created over 150 Shopify stores herself. And now she creates classes on how to launch and grow your own Shopify stores. So we'll be talking all about that. Elle, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Now, before we get into it, can you just tell us a little bit about you and your background and how you got into doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I've been a Shopify expert for 7 years now, and my background is actually in web development. I got my bachelor's degree in web design, and I started actually after college a wedding invitation business myself. And I was looking for a platform to actually sell my cards on and different stationery. And so I came across the Shopify platform then, and this was so long ago, it was definitely nowhere near where it is now. However, it was already really kind of above the other platforms at that time of offering different capabilities. So I built my store there and just fell in love with the platform so much that I ended up leaving the web design the wedding invitation business and starting my own web design company and moving forward from there, just creating Shopify stores for other people.
Wow. Now, when you were doing the wedding invitations, did it ever occur to you to check out Etsy or sell on Etsy, or was that not on your radar at all?
So at that time, I was doing a lot more custom wedding invitations that were a lot of hand lettering. So I was really just looking for a spot that I could have where I could have a lot more options in terms of custom fields and people being able to customize their card a lot more. So I was kind of just going straight towards a self-service site, and I didn't actually even try out Etsy for that. Okay.
And now I mentioned you're a Shopify expert. You said that, but just so everyone knows, this isn't a self-given title just because you've used it a lot. This is an actual designation from Shopify. Can you explain what a Shopify expert is and what it takes to become a Shopify expert?
Yeah, so Shopify experts are certified by Shopify. So you have to show that you can build a site correctly, that if you are doing marketing and email campaigns for other people, that you're actually getting the results that you promise. And so you're just giving Shopify access to make sure that you're, doing everything correctly for clients. And once they've verified that you have great communication skills and that your work is up to a certain level, then you can get certified through them to be the Shopify expert.
Nice. And congratulations on getting that.
Thank you.
Yes, I know there's a section on Shopify that lists all their experts, and it's a what's the word? It's a closed crew in that not everybody who builds a Shopify website is listed on there. So
definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Now, so as you know, most people who are listening to this conversation sell on Etsy or are starting an Etsy store. And Shopify is its own separate thing. Shopify means setting up a Shopify store means you're creating your own website. You have a website that's independently owned by you. One of the things we talked about was when a good time to transition, if at all, is from Etsy to a Shopify store. what do you think is is the right time for someone who sells on Etsy to move over, if at all? And are there some people that you would recommend not move over to Shopify?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different kind of pros and cons for staying on Etsy or doing a separate Shopify store, and you could definitely still do both as well. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is, especially if you're first starting out in your business and you're still trying to figure out who your ideal customer is, what products really resonate with them the most, I think having a big platform like Etsy is really valuable because you can really get your product in front of a lot more people, because they have built-in search functionalities, and you can see what people are gravitating towards the most, what questions that they're asking. And you just don't have that if you have your own separate Shopify site. If you have your own separate site, you're responsible for sending all of the traffic to it. So it's kind of relying on other features. So I think, especially when you're first getting started, having your store set up on Etsy and just being able to test and learn more about your products and your customers is super, super helpful.
Okay. Now, on Etsy, we can sell any type of product. Well, not any type of product. You can sell handmade products. We can sell supplies for crafting, and we can sell vintage items. And people are able to search the platform and look for what they want. Now, is Shopify, and also digital downloads like printables. Mm-hmm. I know Shopify is flexible enough in that you can sell pretty much anything, but would you say having a Shopify store will be more beneficial for people who sell specific types of products? Like, is it better for the handmade sellers and not so much for those who are doing the printables or supplies or vintage items?
So I would say overall, it can hold a lot of different types of products in there. So you can definitely do printables or downloadable guides to sell on your store, as well as any kind of products. You can't sell, illegal products or things like that. Shopify will pull that. However, any kind of product that you have, you can definitely set up and sell on Shopify. The one kind of thing to keep in mind is if you're selling more kind of one-off products like vintage, one-of-a-kind pieces, It is going to take just a little bit longer in terms of setting up your store, because you're now having to set up individual products for each, where if you had one product that you can make multiples of, then you only have to set up that product once in Shopify and can keep selling it. And so it's just going to be a little bit more time intensive of setting up a lot of different products, especially if it was one-offs like vintage products.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. And then what about the cost to sell on Shopify? With Etsy, we have the listing fee and then the final transaction fees. With Shopify, I'm guessing the pricing structure is set up differently. And how does that compare to what a seller would have to shell out on Etsy versus Shopify?
Yeah, so on Shopify, you do have a few additional charges. So first off, you do have a monthly Shopify charge of the basic one is $29 a month, and then the step up from there is $79 a month. And with the $79 a month plan, you do get gift cards added in and some additional reporting, which is helpful as well. But I recommend for a lot of people that are just transferring over or starting their Shopify store for the first time, that the $29 a month plan is going to do everything that you need it to do. There are additional add-on apps. So if you have additional functionality that you're wanting to add in, like a rewards program, or for people to leave photo reviews or things like that on your site, that will be an additional app that sometimes can be a monthly charge as well. So you do have to keep an eye on that and make sure that you don't add so many apps in that you're going to really increase your budget a lot from there. Okay. But then other than that, you do have the standard transaction fees as well for orders that come in.
Okay. So in trying to determine, as a seller, someone who's already on Etsy, in trying to determine when a good time to add Shopify into my business mix would be, would you say, as far as looking at the numbers, that I should be having a certain minimum in sales per month to make it worth moving over to Shopify? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, so I'm not sure about obviously you would definitely want to make sure that the amount of money that you make is going to be able to cover the cost
Mm-hmm.
ongoing for Shopify.
Mm-hmm.
But that could be, as low as $29 a month.
Okay.
So I would think for that, it would be more about the time frame. I wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily go straight to Shopify. I would kind of build it out first on Etsy and test out your different items. And then you could even make it kind of a slower process of where you're building out your Shopify store. And once you know that you've got kind of a hero product on Etsy, then moving it over to Shopify and selling it on your own platform. But there's definitely still the cons of having a Shopify store because you need to now dedicate more time, not only just in setting up the store, but sending traffic to it because you don't have that built in search engine like you do with Etsy.
Okay. And just for anyone who's listening, you mentioned a hero product. What's that?
So a hero product, just in terms of a product that you know is going to sell really well, that you're selling really well on Etsy and you're getting a lot of great reviews,
Yes.
and you don't really need to tweak anything. It's good to go. You just want to send some more traffic to it.
Okay. One of the things that we talked about in transitioning to Shopify in the episode that I mentioned earlier a few months ago was certain apps that you can sign up with or install, or I don't really know how they work, but they'll suck your Etsy listings over into a Shopify store. What's your opinion on that? And do you think that's a good way to go about setting up one's Shopify store, or do you advise that it's better to start from scratch?
I think it all kind of depends on how many products you have. If you have a large catalog, it's probably going to be easier to use a migration service like that. And there's a couple different tools.
Yeah.
In my experience, I've noticed they're not always pulling over the information correctly. And either some fields get lost in the exchange or they just aren't able to be transferred over. So I do think there is a benefit from setting up your products individually on Shopify, just to make sure that everything's going to be formatted correctly. But I could definitely understand if you had a couple hundred products, that would be a very intimidating task to set up everything one by one.
Yes. Okay. Good to know. And thank you for giving me the technical term migration service.
Yeah.
Like, what do you call it? It just sucks everything over.
Yeah.
Okay. And typically, what would you estimate would be a realistic time frame that a seller can give himself or herself to set up a new Shopify store?
Yeah, so I would say to kind of set aside about a week to 2 weeks to customize the site design, set everything up, and add in all your products. You can definitely get it done faster the more you have everything set up. So especially if you're moving directly from Etsy and you have all of your product titles, pricing, descriptions, photos, then it is going to be a lot more seamless to pull over. But I guess that also depends on your time as well. I would say probably around 10 to 15 hours is a reasonable guess if you are moving straight over from Etsy.
Okay. And then I'm glad you mentioned photos because now with Etsy, some types of photographs perform better as far as orientation and styling and what have you. Do we have to worry or be concerned as much about that on Shopify? Like, are there some types of photos that you think will perform better on that platform as well, or whatever we're using on Etsy is good enough to use on our Shopify stores?
Yeah, I would say whatever products you're using on Etsy is totally fine to use on Shopify. The biggest thing is I would say just make sure that they're more uniform. So if you're going with a certain style of photos, either of lifestyle photos or just kind of your product on a white background, whatever it is, to kind of make it the same consistent style throughout, as well as the same consistent sizing. So that way you don't have a really horizontal product image next to a really vertical one, just so it's nice and cohesive across the board.
Okay. All right. So now for someone who's starting out afresh, has never been on Shopify, has never used any of the tools, you have some courses that are step-by-step guides on how to set up Shopify and basically get up and running, one, and then also drive traffic to your store as well, because that's a big part of having your own e-commerce website is traffic. So can we start with the e-commerce store? The e-commerce class, the basic Shopify class. What does that walk one through? And from at the end of it, what can a student expect to end up with after going through it?
Yeah, so my Shopify course is called Ecom in a Weekend, and we start off signing up for the free 14-day free trial with Shopify in the first video, and then it takes you step by step through the whole process. So we go through how to customize your different settings for Shopify, of setting up your store, as well as setting up your pages, your collections, so your grouping of products, the individual products themselves. Shopify, you can also have a blog, so setting up the blog and the navigation. And then I also go into actually stylizing the site design so that it looks like your branding, and adding any additional apps in for functionality. Like I was mentioning, of if you wanted a digital download app, walking you through that process. And then the last step in the course is actually launching your store, connecting that domain up so that your store is live, and then how to fulfill orders once they come in moving forward. So we really kind of take you from the very beginning step to at the end of the course, your Shopify store will be live, and you'll be able to start sending traffic to that, and of course, making sales.
Okay. How much technology know-how should one have coming into this, or, starting this course?
You really don't have to be tech savvy at all. I would definitely have a computer. It would be harder to do on your phone to build that out, but you really don't have to be tech savvy. We walk you through step by step and are screen sharing everything along the way. So you can kind of just have me up in one side of the screen and then your site up in the other, and we can just go step by step through everything.
Okay. And then as far as support, let's say someone needs help with something. Is there a way to connect with a support team, or you, or someone trained by you who can help with questions that come up along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you have purchased the course, you are able to get into the course platform backend area. And from there, you can contact us anytime you have a question. If you get stuck or something wasn't clear, you can always contact us, and me or a member of my team will be sure to help you and respond back quickly.
Okay. Then, so then the big thing with having your own e-commerce store is driving traffic. That's something that we typically don't worry about as much on Etsy. We need to worry about it for sure, but Etsy does do a lot to bring buyers to the marketplace already, and then sellers kind of take the ball from there, and then we do what we can to grab the eyeballs over to our store. It's different when you have a completely new website that nobody knows about, getting traffic from, the World Wide Web to come to your place. And so your course, it's called the Traffic Blueprint. And that's what that course solves. That's what it teaches how to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the biggest problem that I see any kind of e-commerce seller, no matter which platform you're on, is, okay, everything's ready. How do I make sales? How do I get traffic to that? And that's definitely something that you have to think about when transferring over to Shopify, is that you're now responsible for sending the traffic over. Yeah. And so my Traffic Blueprint course goes step by step through our strategy of how we've done it for multiple e-commerce stores of our own. And so it really starts off first with knowing exactly who your ideal customer is, because now you have so many areas of the site that you can really customize the wording to match your branding and really ring in true to your ideal customer. We also in that course talk about SEO, which is search engine optimization. So it's how to get your site actually found in Google for your different keywords and products. We also talk about email marketing, which is a really nice bonus of having a Shopify store, because now you are able to collect email addresses of people who maybe they don't purchase on your site right away, but you're able to still get that email address and follow up with them so you can build that relationship and they start to know, like, and trust you and know how your brand is different from your competitors and what the benefits of your product are. And also in the course, we talk about how to increase your conversion rates and running Facebook and Pinterest ads. And then finally, we talk about social media and influencer marketing. So social media of how to drive different traffic to your site organically, as well as PR and influencer marketing of doing outreach to other companies and brands to promote you.
Wow, that's a lot.
And it is a lot, but I find that honestly, the best way to get traffic to your store is to have multiple different funnels, if you will, to come to your site.
Yes.
So that way you can make sure, first off, that your site's optimized correctly to hopefully convert that traffic. So you've got your email list set up, you've got different funnels that you can funnel people through on your site through like an upsell to hopefully increase that total order value. But you're also hopefully going to be bringing organic traffic to your site so that, yes, you can pay for traffic and get a quick influx of traffic, but as soon as you turn off the ads, then your traffic goes away too. So it's nice to also build up these organic income or these organic streams to your site to build more traffic overall so that you're not just having to pay for traffic all the time.
Yeah. And does that include blogging? Do you also teach about using that type of content marketing to draw in traffic?
Yeah, so we cover that in our PR outreach and influencer area.
Okay.
So talking about different keywords that you found in the search engine optimization part of the course and knowing exactly what your ideal customer is looking for when they're looking for your products, and then how to create content that's curated around that so that hopefully that also gets listed in the search engine. So whenever they're, Googling whatever question they have, that not only do your products come up, but the blog post talking about it does as well.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as far as social media marketing as it pertains to running an independent e-commerce website, I know you mentioned Facebook ads and Pinterest ads. Are those primarily the two social media platforms you recommend, or that's solely for paid advertising?
So that's for paid advertising. By setting up ads through Facebook, you can also target them for Instagram. So when I say Facebook, that also means Instagram as well.
Okay.
You just have to build it all in one area. But I found that typically ads perform best on Facebook and Instagram as well as Pinterest. And I've really kind of leaned into Pinterest a lot more in my own personal e-commerce strategy over the last few years, just because the Pinterest pins actually live forever. So as soon as you turn off the paid ad on that pin, the pin can still exist on people's boards. People can still keep pinning it years down the road. Yeah, so it's nice because you can get traffic far after you actually turned off the ads, where with Facebook and Instagram, as soon as you turn off the ad, that's that. Like they're not going to be showing it to anyone anymore.
That's so true. I never stopped to think about that. And realistically, would you say it's even worth it to try and do anything organically on social media, or at this point in time, with almost every platform offering paid advertising, that it's just better to go ahead and pay for advertising rather than try and grow organically or drive traffic organically? What are your thoughts on that?
So I would definitely still try and drive traffic organically because it's free, as well as you're building up that brand and that community. So hopefully as people are coming to your site, they're signing up to your email list or they're clicking over to your different social media accounts. And hopefully you can start building that tribe where you're constantly giving value to them and talking directly to them. So I think there's still definitely a need to have the organic reach and be posting on social media. However, it is really nice to, if you want to do a certain kind of promotion promotion or test out a product, to be able to have paid ads and send a flood of traffic to your site that you know is more targeted like your ideal customer, it's a really helpful thing. So I kind of recommend doing both.
Okay.
But I do want to just say, you don't have to have a huge budget to do paid advertising. I've done paid advertising for just $5 a day and let it run for a month. And it kind of builds up over time. So don't think, okay, I have to have thousands of dollars to start running Facebook ads or anything like that.
Right. Okay. And with the paid advertising modules, how much knowledge does one need to have coming in, like say Pinterest, making pins and all that? Do you go over that at least just a basic level, or does one already need to know how to create pins and pretty pins and all that?
So we do go over it in the Traffic Blueprint course. We use the free tool called canva.com. And so it actually is like a free photo editor tool that you can use. And they have different templates for different social media platforms as well as Pinterest. So we walk you through how to customize different pins for your branding. Okay. And that way they are easy to upload into Pinterest. And then we actually take you through the whole process of uploading those pins and turning them into ads.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. And the other thing you mentioned that helps to drive traffic is email marketing. And in your course, I see that you teach MailChimp. Is that what you recommend? And is that what is most compatible with Shopify?
Yeah, so there are a couple different email providers that do link into Shopify. However, I really like MailChimp because it's free for the first 2,000 subscribers, which you get a lot of functionality for that free amount for the first 2,000, which I think is really helpful as you're just getting started of building your email list. Yeah. And so it's really helpful for there, as well as they do have really nice segmenting. So you can connect it to your Shopify store and specifically send different emails to people who've purchased from you in the past, who've purchased over a certain amount, or who purchased from you recently, or haven't purchased from you again after like 90 days. So you can do a lot of different segmenting and show your products in the actual MailChimp emails. So it makes it really easy and connected in. So that's kind of why I always recommend the MailChimp platform for Shopify.
Okay. And in that module that teaches about email marketing, do you also teach like what to include in the newsletters that we're sending, so we're not always just peppering the people on our list with products to buy? I know, and I just want to mention this here, one of your first businesses was selling a family newsletter.
Yeah.
which I'm amazed. But so having been in the newsletter business for a while now, do you also teach like other types of content to share so that subscribers don't just feel always barraged with buy this?
Yeah, that is a very good point. And I think we've all probably experienced that from brands, as every single day or every other day they're sending of, oh, this is on sale, buy this, buy that. Yeah. And it gets really tiring and you unsubscribe pretty quickly. So I think that's really important to keep in mind, is that you do want to have that balance where you're still providing value to the people who sign up to your email list. So you're not just talking about your products all the time, but other interests that may be important to them as well, because you kind of are tying into that ideal customer and you know of what they're interested in, but also just talking about other things and not just making it so promotional all the time. So we do go into different emails to send out, as well as talking about lead magnets. So that's kind of a way to entice people to get onto your email list. So you're kind of providing something of value, like a downloadable guide or a coupon code, something like that of value in exchange for their email address.
Oh, nice. Yes. Are there any other pros and cons that you can think of for someone who is selling on Etsy right now and trying to make a decision about whether or not it's time to expand into Shopify?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest pros of also doing a Shopify store would be that you can really customize it with your branding. Again, you can tie in that email list functionality so that you're building that email list up. A thing to keep in mind is that while social media platforms are great, they can change their algorithm, and in an instant, your organic reach and your exposure can really decrease. And we've seen this many times before. So having that email list that you own the contacts of, and you can reach out to them whenever you want, talk about whatever you want, is super valuable. And that's really nice that you're able to do that and build that in with your Shopify site.
Yeah.
I think also having the ability to just have only your products, I think that's kind of the biggest issue with Etsy in terms of if you were to send paid advertising. It's hard to send paid advertising to Etsy because then you're sending them to your site, but they have so many other things going on in that area, and they could easily click away. So it's kind of a gamble, and you may sometimes end up wasting money because they look at your product and they instantly just go somewhere else on Etsy because they have so much competition and things around. So it's really nice to be able to send paid ads to your site where it's only your products, and you're only going to, be promoting and suggesting your own content and keeping them really kind of focused in, and hopefully they don't get distracted.
Yeah, this is so true. Some of the cons that we have to deal with selling on Etsy, but then I'm glad that you've given us a realistic idea of what it's going to take to move over to Shopify or to set up a Shopify store, I should say. And like I said, this is a conversation that is constantly swirling. I for one think it does help to expand your bases, just so all your eggs are not in one basket. But it's a huge responsibility because you have something else that is going to require time and attention and effort, and upfront quite a bit of that too. What are some points that you think someone who is setting up a shop might get discouraged about, and where are they most likely to give up, and how would you stop them from doing that?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people get the most frustrated in two different areas of setting up their Shopify store. So first off, they get frustrated in setting up products because that can just be time consuming, and especially depending on how many products you currently have. Now, I will say there is some different functionality in Shopify where you can, set up one product, and let's say you have 10 other products in that same category that are going to be the same price or functionality of the same type of product. You can actually easily duplicate them and just change out the title, the description, and the image. So that does make the process go faster. However, I think just the time of setting up the products is probably one of the most time intensive parts, as well as the other area is actually customizing your store. I hear so many times that people say, okay, I like this template or this Shopify theme, but whenever I add in my own images, it doesn't look the same. And so it does take some time of just going through the different settings and customizing it. And I would say that that's probably the other area where people get a little frustrated if they had a vision in their head and the images that they're adding in, it doesn't quite look like the vision. And so that's why it's definitely important to don't give up. I would just take a pause, realize that you don't have to get it all done in a day, and just take a pause there and come back to it later, because it is a little bit more time intensive, but you can always just save that progress and come back to your store later to finish setting it up.
I know I'm one of those people who I tend to sometimes convince myself I need to get it all done in one sitting. And and yes, I would, like you said, I'd be one of those people who would be so frustrated if I wasn't seeing what I wanted to see right then. And it's hard to pull away and say, you know what, I'm just going to come back to it, because I think in my head, well, when I come back, it's still going to look the same. So I might as well just fix it now. So thanks
I would say for customizing your store design, it's going to probably be around an hour to 2 hours of just customizing all of the different pages. So once you do make kind of some tweaks like your logo, it'll then be kind of duplicated across all the pages on your site, but it just takes a little bit of time to set everything up, customize your fonts and your colors and add in your images at the correct sizes and all of that. So I would say around an hour to 2 hours if you already have the images ready.
Okay. Now, if anyone wants to check out Elle's website, it's curiousthemes.com. But Elle, if someone listening has additional questions, perhaps something we haven't discussed, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, so I have on my website a contact us page, so you're welcome to send a question there and we're happy to help. I also have a YouTube channel that is specifically just about Shopify, so you could always go there. I have 161 videos up right now. I've been doing the YouTube channel since 2015, so I've got a lot of Shopify questions covered already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a good library there of Shopify information. So you can definitely check out our YouTube channel as well to see the different tutorials and questions that we've answered there. But definitely you can reach out to us on our site if you have any questions.
Wow, I'm so impressed with your YouTube channel. I meant to mention that. It slipped my mind, but thank you for bringing it up. I will link to Elle's YouTube channel. It's Curious Themes Shopify Experts if you want to look it up, but I will put a direct link to it in the show notes for this episode. How often do you release new videos?
So we have been releasing new videos 2 a week and focusing a lot more on the Shopify step-by-step aspect or individual Shopify apps. However, I'm starting to transition to a new phase and doing content more on overall e-commerce strategies and how to grow any kind of e-commerce business, no matter what platform you're on. So I'm taking a step back and only doing 1 video a week now, but making it a lot more in-depth for overall e-commerce.
Yeah. Wow, thank you. Okay, so I will link to that. Again, Elle's website is curiousthemes.com. That's CuriousThemes.com. And I will link to her YouTube channel as well. Elle, thank you for sharing all this information about Shopify and giving us even more food for thought. And but also for providing resources for those who are ready to take the next step and venture out into setting up an e-commerce site, not just building one up, but then also learning how to drive traffic to it, which is another, just like the next major step after having the shop open. And so I will link to both of Elle's courses as well. The Shopify class, is it Ecom in a Weekend?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And your traffic blueprint as well. So folks can check that out. And she also offers some free guides on her website too. So definitely peruse and learn as much as you can, because I know this is a big decision that it takes a lot of thought and it's going to take a lot of effort too. Definitely not something you want to enter into half-heartedly or if you don't have the time. Would you say so, Elle?
Oh yeah, definitely. I would definitely put aside a chunk of a week or 2 to make the transition and make sure that you realize that it is going to take some time to transition everything over.
Yes. Thank you. I think, thank you for setting that expectation, because I do think that sometimes we get discouraged a bit too early or we don't have realistic expectations. So yes. Again, yes. Elle's website is curiousthemes.com. Elle, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this.
You are welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back again next week. If you haven't yet signed up for any of my live trainings and workshops, do go to convome.com and look at the training and workshops tab. You'll see what's coming up next. And there will be a link for you to register for an upcoming workshop. If you want to connect with me if you want to connect with me online, you can also connect with me on Instagram. Right now, that's where I'm spending most of my time socially, and that's at Convo Me Podcast.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.